Hello, everyone. This is Duke Sayre, and this is the Man Club podcast. Today, I'm excited. It is part 2 with Todd Acamesis, going in depth, going in deeper. What are the misunderstandings about remote viewing, astral projecting, lucid dreaming, out-of-body experiences? And he talks more and more in depth about how far he has pushed it and the furthest things he's seen at the furthest edges of reality, as well as dropping some golden nuggets on what you too can do at home to start having these experiences and start improving your life by accessing these other realms, dimensions, and planes. So we kick off with me asking, what are the misunderstandings? Enjoy the episode. Look forward to seeing you on the other side. And do please connect with both of us on Facebook. Let us know how you found this episode. Let us know any further questions you have. Yeah, look forward to hearing you. I'll see you on the other side. Awesome. So on that note, Todd, you've talked about so many things already in these 45 minutes so far. But one of the things I'd love to hear from you, because you do combine the science, you don't teach it until you've actually explored yourself and got to a certain level of mastery. What are some of the biggest misdemeanors and the biggest load of BS which is out there, which you think is hindering people not only on their journey, but also learning these techniques?
Fear is the single biggest barrier to exploration of any kind. It's just getting in a sailboat for the first time, getting on a plane for the first time. It's always going to be fear that's going to get in your way. So fear is rampant in this sort of community. You know, when you go online, you'll see a lot of scaremongering. People will say things like, you'll get out of your body, but then you can't get back in, or you'll get out of your body.
And that was actually one of the questions on the post I put on Facebook. Someone asked, "What if you can't get back in your body?"
Well, let me answer that. Let me answer it and put somebody's mind to rest.
Yeah.
It's actually more difficult to stay out of body than to come back. It's the easiest thing in the world to come back. It's difficult to stay out. The challenge is staying out for longer periods of time, because your energy body, which is your first energy body, the one with what we refer to as the classic 7 major chakras that go through the central line of the body. That energy body, the human energy field is directly energetically connected to the physical body. It's the closest energy form that we have in contact with the physical body. It's not designed to have out-of-body experiences. That's not what we have out-of-body experiences with. We have out-of-body experiences with our astral body, our body of light, whatever you want to call it. There's different labels for it. And it's learning to develop that. But in the interim of developing it, the challenge really is staying out. Most people, their out-of-body experiences last for seconds or minutes at best. You very rarely hear anybody talking about, more than 10 minutes, more than 20 minutes, more than 30 minutes, certainly, not hours. You have the odd experience, which is like gold, where you're out for like 3 or 4 hours at a time, but that is rare. That's not the exception. The norm is a few seconds to a few minutes, and then bam, you're back in your body, and you didn't even try. It's almost like you were just magnetically drawn back to your body. Partly because it's like physical musculature. You have to develop these psychic muscles. You have to develop these spiritual muscles. You have to develop your energy body and your astral body. And until you strengthen them to those levels that we have with our physical bodies, you're not going to go very far, and you're certainly not going to go out for very long. So it's absolute rubbish for anybody to think, well, not to think, but for others to say that, once you're out, you might have difficulty getting back in. That's just not the case.
And I think as well, with the fear-mongering, I'd love to get your take on this, especially when it comes to people taking plant-based psychedelics. There is so much fear, but for me, I have never seen anyone have an experience that wasn't what they're able to handle. I just genuinely believe you only get given what you can handle. You're not all of a sudden going to get stuck in some reality loop. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And sure, now and again, you might have an experience where it suddenly seems like, oh shit, I can't get back to my body. But you just have to relax, because, I've had experiences where I've had back-to-back false awakenings. I think, the most is around 6. 6 back-to-back false awakenings, and I was just panicking. I was like,
that's some Inception shit, that is.
Yeah, it is. It's a real, these dreams within a dream they talk about in Inception. And fair enough, if you're in a particular time domain out of body on the astral planes where the time just doesn't, there's no sun in the sky as such that's going from one horizon to the next, and you got a great sense of time because of man-made artifacts like clocks and watches. then, suddenly if there's just a constant light in the sky and nobody really has any timepieces, it's very subjective. And you might think, oh my God, I've been out of my body for days or hours and days, and it might freak you out. But I promise you, you'll always return. There might be that time when it was just your time to die and you just happen to be out of body, like sleeping in bed. Somebody's going to die in bed. How many, in life, you probably hear about, oh, they passed peacefully in their sleep. Do you think they just suddenly cut their astral cord, or somebody else cut it, or they couldn't get the road back to their physical body? No, it doesn't work that way. It's just, that was probably their time to go. If it's not your time to go, then you're coming back. I've been out of body in environments, beautiful, incredible, very, the type of environments where there's just this great energy between everybody there. And you're like, oh, I don't want to return. This is just too beautiful. And you're not forced back, but you're reminded that you still have a journey elsewhere, and that journey is not complete, and you'll be sort of helped back, if you like. So it's something people have to experience for themselves, but it's a magical experience. And I promise you, the way I'm now seeing this, because of all these experiences, this level of reality is priceless.
100% agree. So Todd, when it comes to in the physical world, before we start talking about techniques and tips and starting to do this, going to workshops, things like that, in the actual physical body, things like diet, things like Wi-Fi, things like, how good your sleep is, how good your stress is, all that kind of stuff. What are maybe like the top 5 things if people wanted to give themselves a good foundation physically, mentally, before they even start engaging in these techniques, that would help to accelerate being able to do this? What are some of the things you might advise?
Okay. Good questions. So I had an out-of-body experience probably over a year and a half ago, where I was teaching on another level of reality. Other people who were out of body, majority of them probably wouldn't remember that they were, out of body on another level. It happens to us all. It's like we're living a double life, like Neo in the Matrix.
Yeah.
And we just don't realize it because our spiritual and sort of psychic muscles just aren't developed enough to remember the experiences that are taking place, off world while we're sleeping. When we start to tune into this stuff regularly, we start to develop those different muscles, we can start to remember more. We're already having unconscious journeys. We just need to start remembering them if that's what people want to do. So I would say, looking at things like, what effect is my diet having on, having out-of-body experiences? What effect is my diet having on meditation? What effect is my diet having on sleep? There's so many good studies and sort of reports and articles out there on, the optimum sort of, time to stop eating food before bedtime. In some people's reality, that's like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 p.m., in the afternoon. And then they just subsist on sort of liquid diet from that point onwards. And if you think about it, for sleep, it makes a lot of sense, because if you eat a heavy meal before bedtime, you've got all those digestive enzymes that now have to be pulled in from all kinds of resources within the body to now digest that food, and that's going to keep you awake to some degree. You won't have a very, deep sleep. Is this really benefiting me? If I want to do lucid dreaming, is this benefiting me? If I want to do out-of-body exploration or remote viewing, is this benefiting me? So it's looking at the quality of your current waking life. And the biggest thing I would say on that is, if you're not already able to be lucid enough to have a lucid dream, you need to look at your everyday life. Are you lucid enough in waking life? Because if you're not being present, with yourself, in your body, with other people, because like as an example, I think sometimes when I talk, people hear me speak, they might assume that all I do is lie around on a sofa during the day and go out of body to other realms. I don't do that. I might spend, 2 or 3 hours practicing in the early morning before people even wake up. So I'll go to bed earlier, I'll wake up earlier so I can do this practice. And then I might do a remote viewing session in the middle of the day and some meditation. But these are great practices because these, metaphysical practices give us that opportunity to take a break from our everyday drama so we can then start recalibrating our nervous system, all of our thoughts, all of our feelings. So our behavior, changes. Our behavior changes in a positive way. People come to the spa. They have maybe 30 minutes on the gongs. We have a gong chamber surrounded by, that's sat within a pyramid. And the pyramid is grounded outdoors, so it's a grounding sort of force. And if they have any positive buildup of a positive charge because of their mobile phones or other electromagnetic, devices like their laptops, they build up a positive charge in their body. And positive in this sense is not good. It creates free radical damage. So they come here, they sit in the pyramid chamber, they have the gong bath, these beautiful sound waves massaging every organ in their body. They get so therapeutically, deeply relaxed, and then they go on the light machine for maybe another half an hour of deep, entrainment, which is also very relaxing. They come off the machine, and they say the similar thing. It's like, oh my God, I feel like myself again. And then they think about, oh, now I have to go outside back on the underground in the crowds of people, and I stop them and they're like, right there. This is when you need to be out there. Right now, how you're feeling, this is when you need to be out there, because this is when your heart is open. This is where you can be compassionate and merciful without even trying. Before they came into the spa, they might have been feeling, depressed or anxious or stressed. They've got nothing to give to other people in that state, except for maybe their anger or their sadness, and certainly nothing that's going to help other people in a very profound way. So I think when we look at, what effect is my diet having on my life? What effect is my sleep having on my life? What effect, is me not paying attention to people when I'm talking to them one-on-one and I keep looking at my mobile phone? The quality of those experiences are going to translate into the quality of their nighttime experiences, such as their nighttime practice of lucid dreams and out-of-body experiences. What is the point of trying to have a lucid dream if you're just not sort of having a proper in-body experience? You know what I mean?
100%. And I always think, for me, it's always been a case of people come to me like, Duke, I want to integrate this, I want to learn that. And I'm like, okay, cool. But in the physical realm, what do you want to achieve? And then follow that thread. Same thing with people wanting to release trauma. Some people just go into digging. I'm like, no, what's in your life right now isn't working, then go back and release it. So definitely 100% agree. One thing I'd like to ask you, Todd, because obviously some people, there's been a lot of response to me interviewing. A lot of people are fascinated by this and interested for different reasons. What do you think, for most people, the benefits are of doing lucid dreaming, doing out of body, doing remote viewing? How is that actually going to benefit their human life?
Because it's going to ground them more into their physical body. I find this is the absolute biggest thing that takes place. Yeah, I find this by having these out-of-body experiences, by having lucid dreams, like I was saying earlier, it's a metaphysical practice like meditation. And what happens in meditation? We are taking time out from our mortal lives. We're taking time out from our everyday drama. And by doing that, we're able to go deep. We're able to start navigating beyond the fear mind. And when we start navigating beyond the fear mind, we start tuning back into who and what we really are. Who and what we really are very loving, merciful, compassionate, understanding, forgiving beings. So, while we're in these spiritual states, while we're in these metaphysical, sort of environments, having these experiences, it literally is an opportunity for us to recalibrate our thinking, our feeling. And the deeper that we go into spiritual reality, the more power we find available to us, the more, sort of support we find available to us. Can you imagine going out of body, meeting a guide, meeting another agent of the universe who is very open and has loving intent towards your development, who can sit you down, show you your life plan before you went into this physical body and reminded you of the beautiful journey that you planned for yourself. You might have got off track a little bit, but that's okay. Your higher self isn't going to spank you when you when you sort of transition death and punish you. Nobody's going to punitively punish you. To have that reminder, to have somebody say, like a guide, look, take the time in that earth plane to smell those earthly roses. Really ground yourself in that reality. This reality is going nowhere, the afterlife, the astral planes, the higher planes, the soul plane. us as guides, we're not going anywhere. We're going to stay right here on the edge of your reality, and we're going to be here to support you end to end. Even if you take 2,000 life journeys into a physical body on that level of reality, that's a blink of an eye to us. We will be right here supporting you. Can you imagine then coming back into your body after a journey of that type of nature? You know, you're going to wake up back into your body. You're going to get up and you're going to have this absolute glow. And I mean, you'll hear a lot of out-of-body explorers talk about it. They have this OBE glow, you know, afterglow of the experience for sometimes weeks. You know, can you imagine this, you know, that state of consciousness, you know, as you're walking through a busy train station, the way that you're going to, you know, be able to give energy instead of, you know, being closed down and shut down. You know, you can be open with people. You can literally have enough energy to give to others because you have more than enough for yourself. You know, that is an absolute beautiful state. So what I'm saying is, by having these metaphysical practices, it gives you time to go deep into spirituality to where you can feel that support again, where you can build your energy and then come back and have a better relationship in your physical waking life.
Awesome. So Todd, I'm gonna hit you with a couple of more advanced questions. So for example, I had someone asking, you know, in terms of by location, they were feeling things from another location in their physical body, in their real world, and just some guidance on that if you've experienced that.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, this is something that's bilocation, I think, is something that is talked a lot about in remote viewing circles. And it's effectively, you know, you developing another physical body within, you know, physical reality. So if I'm lying down on the sofa here and suddenly I appear, what in all terms, it might seem like an out-of-body experience, but I can physically interact with my environment, and it seems to be physical Earth. You know, people have had these experiences. I've had similar experiences, and it does make you think, what is happening? And I think because in my belief system about what reality is, to me, physical reality is an illusion. You know, physical reality, you know, in our experiences of physical reality is an absolute illusion. So, you know, to me, you know, the virtual reality is just, you know, the actual reality is within your consciousness. So why would it be hard for me to believe that somebody can materialize another physical body while their current body is lying on a sofa or in a chair, and then they can then sort of, in a sense, teleport somewhere else? It makes perfect sense. You know, if we're literally just in a mental construct, you know, and if it doesn't sort of break, you know, the hard rules as such, if you know, it's not sort of going to create some great cosmic imbalance, then what's the problem with it? I don't think the universe at large is going to say no to it. I think it has a set of rules, like, you know, for physics, you know, we have our physical laws, etc. And I think that's something that, you know, exists within those laws. You know, we're still learning, you know, about, you know, the laws of physics. We can see there's still, there's still unknowns when we look at things like, you know, quantum physics. You know, it starts to turn a lot of our laws of physics on its head. So I think it's very much something that people can experience. I think it's within the rule set for this reality. I think it's something that either is going to happen spontaneously, or it's something that you have to really work at and develop.
Here's another question for you, Todd, from someone else on Facebook. So one of the things I've seen, Todd, which often, you know, I want to get people to just get into their own truth. But what I've seen a lot is people buying into spiritual drama. And one of the questions I've had, which kind of pertains to this, is let's just say you go up into the ethers, you talk to a particular galactic being, or let's just say you've bought into a particular thing. Let's just say, you know, you want to recruit people that you spent time with in another life, and in this lifetime, you're kind of headstrong on that's what's supposed to happen, and all this kind of stuff. How, when you go up into the ethers and you're being given messages, you know, you might be told solutions to diseases, given codes for healing, whatever it might be. How, any advice for people who are doing that? Because I've had a few people ask this. Can people use discernment to truly know whether it's part of their path or if it's some other dimensional being on another plane just playing with them?
Yeah, and I think discernment is the right word for this. You know, discernment is good judgment. You know, we can all have, you know, very bad judgments, and we can all have very good judgment about stuff. And I think fear two can be healthy. There can be healthy fear. Healthy fear stops you from jumping off a bridge or letting somebody else jump off a bridge. You could also call it self-love. You can sort of look at it in different ways, but fear can be used for good. Everything can have a dual use to it. So I think when we're out of body and we might come into contact with another being, we might call, like a fifth dimensional being or a ninth dimensional being. Again, they're labels. I try not to get too caught up in these metaphors because reality certainly seems a lot more interesting than that. So if I was given information on another level of reality, I would, if I don't know who I am, if I'm easily susceptible to other people's, belief systems, that's probably a sign that I don't really know who I am, and I can very easily get lost around other people and their ideas. So I think, it's like any other muscle. It's developing this sense of who I am, the sense of, what I stand for, and having integrity. And, this is, sometimes you see the difference between something somebody says versus something they do, and you can see the disconnect there. And so for me, it's yes, using discernment to feel into the energy of other people, not, sort of judging them in a sense of, in a negative way, but to use that good judgment to say, okay, is this really what I'm about right now? Is this really what I'm wanting to explore? It's for all of us to develop this stuff as individuals. And I think, we get heavily influenced when we don't have integrity. Sorry, if we get influenced in a negative sense, it's probably because we're not sticking to our integrity and we don't have a lot of emotional muscles built up around that.
Yeah, agreed. And have you had messages yourself, Todd, that you've had to kind of park because you realized, okay, maybe this isn't in line with my purpose, but maybe at some point it'll become valid?
I've had people give me information, a whole variety of information, including insights on how to better use the light machine that we've developed. And what's really interesting about that, it's not just me. Out of my team, there's 4 of us that's actively developing programs for the light machine. Including Jimmy, our engineer who developed the light. He's getting very clear, regular messages from a being that seems to be an aspect of Nikola Tesla. I started having contact with a similar being that seems to be an aspect of Nikola Tesla up to probably about 3 or 4 years now. And one of our chief programmers has also started having interesting contact with seemingly an aspect of Nikola Tesla. So, and it makes sense to me in some way because, here was a scientist, probably one of our greatest living scientists. And, for a large part, his work was unfinished when he left this domain because he was being held back by J.P. Morgan and, the powers that be. Because he wanted to give people free energy, and his sort of minders at the time, his financiers, were all about economic values over human values, and that just didn't mix. Whereas for Tesla, it was the other way around. It was humanitarian values first, and then economic values. So we do seem to be getting some really good information from a being that does seem to be aligned with the idea of Tesla, could even be an aspect of Tesla. And when you think about the bigger sort of consciousness, when you transfer from one reality to the next through death, you're just stepping through a doorway. You don't just suddenly disappear and you're just worm food and you no longer exist. Even if Tesla has moved on to other pastures through parallel realities or reincarnated back into this reality, doesn't mean that aspect of him doesn't still exist within, time, within space, somewhere within this big frequency domain.
And I would love to ask you this, Todd. This is probably the last question, final question, is how do you see the reality? So, for example, often it gets bandied around, and I see, again, people getting hooked on this. Oh, I was such and such in a past life. Oh, I'm this incarnation of this angel or elemental or whatever else. Where do you see it in terms of, for example, how many parts of our soul are living this experience at the same time? And how much of what we remember from past lives is actually us, and how much of it is a fragment of us or something up above us that we're tapping into? Where do you sit on all of that?
I kind of look at this particular time domain, again, it has its rule set. So where we experience linear reality, this linear sort of experience. But once you start moving beyond this time domain and other potential time domains, and you get into more of a fundamental layer of reality or base reality within the Earth life system, because I think there is a base reality as such. I typically call it like the soul plane. And from that sort of perspective, seemingly beyond time as we're certainly aware of it, things seem to operate in more of a simultaneous way. So what we may refer to as a past life, that is because we are so conditioned with linear time. Whereas with the soul, outside of time and space as we're aware of it, certainly outside of time as we're aware of it, like the subconscious, if you've done any sort of work with the subconscious through hypnosis or through lucid dreaming, you tend to find it doesn't seem to have a time aspect to it. It can have a space aspect. It just doesn't seem to have a time aspect as such. And I think, we're all interconnected. All of our subconscious is interconnected into this, this tapestry, this woven tapestry of consciousness. And, from a certain perspective, all of this is taking place simultaneously. With regards to people having experiences of, being, you hear maybe 10 people, I was Cleopatra in a past life, or I was, this person in a past life, and they're like, well, we can't all be Cleopatra, can we? And I think we're tapping into this reality, and we realize that, wait a second, this 0 point field, that's everything. We're all interconnected, So ultimately, when I look around me, a part of me sees this separation, which is, the fear mind using, or the mind in general, depending on how you want to look at it, using our five senses to create this sense of, independence, although we're very interconnected. And I think, once you can start seeing beyond the five senses, you can start seeing beyond your physical sight with your spiritual eyes, you start to realize that, there's only one person in the room. So to me, if somebody starts picking up on something that says, I was Cleopatra in a past life, I don't personally have a problem with it. I think, what are they tapping into? I'm not having that experience myself, so I don't know what they're tapping into. So I try not to judge other people's spiritual journeys. I think as much as possible, it's letting people have these journeys, because at some point they might look back on that time period of their life and they might think, oh, you know what? I think I might have been kidding myself a little bit there. Or they might find that it's their personal truth. So I think it's, as spiritual explorers, we have to learn to be the biggest grown-ups in the room. And that part of that is, being very generous. It's also, learning to, not judge other people's spiritual experience. So it's just one of those things again. It's, it's that discernment. It's just like, okay, I don't need to attach too much energy to this. If somebody is having that experience, it's not my experience. So I don't really know.
Awesome.
Does that make sense?
It. No, 100%. And I 100% agree with you. I just think within this, especially within the spiritual development world, and quote unquote, there's a lot of attachment. Like you said, a lot of people getting attached to this happened, therefore X, rather than remaining in innocence, remaining open to whatever's showing up. So yeah, 100% agree.
But that's the thing right there, I think, Duke, is at some point, we're all on this, we're like all on these different roads, and all roads lead to Rome type, thing. It doesn't matter where somebody's at. It doesn't really matter even if they think they're on a spiritual journey. None of that matters. What matters is, who those people are being. And, it's how we're showing up for them and how they're showing up in our reality, and to me, it's the quality of the experiences that we're having. And if we're constantly sort of judging or blaming or shaming people, everybody involved in that is going to be having a low quality experience. So it's learning to build those emotional muscles, to have that self-love, to say, okay, that person isn't hurting me by having that belief system. They're not really hurting anybody by having that belief system. You might think, well, they're hurting themselves. Well, if they're going to be, sort of on this planet for any period of time, those beliefs can change. If they're going to be reincarnated back into this level or multiple experiences on other levels, they have all the time in the eternal sort of, now to develop to a level to where, they have their own personal enlightenment. And to me, enlightenment is just the unlearning of fear in the first place.
Yeah, great. That was one of the things on my journey I had to learn, was that I wanted, I saw what I could do in the future, and I'm like, okay, I want to be a healer that can do X, Y, and Z and everything else. And then after a while, I learned the hard way that actually you just have to experience it, enjoy the experience. You'll get what you get when you're supposed to get it, and just exactly what you're saying. Be more in the being and who you are from day to day, rather than trying to get to a certain point on your spiritual journey and on your development journey.
Yeah, for sure. And it's baby steps. I think that's important for people to realize. They think, I've got to do it all in one go. And in this lifetime, this is got to be the lifetime. It's like, it's baby steps. It's always baby steps.
So Todd, for people who are listening now, and there'll be a lot of beginnings, but there'll also be some seasoned pros, shall we say, what are some of the, is there, out of everything you've talked about, false awakenings, lucid dreaming, out-of-body experiences, remote viewing, do you recommend for someone who's not currently able to master any of those, that focus on one of those first and get good at doing that? And are there other practices that aid doing that? What have you got some protocols for people? Like, if you're a complete beginner, start off with lucid dreaming, get the grips with that? Or is it just a case of whatever you're drawn to?
I think you've nailed it there. I think it is whatever you're drawn to initially. And getting really clear about why you're drawn to that. What is the purpose of exploring that? And I find that when people are really clear about what they want to learn, why they want to learn it, it then is all about ritual. It's just the practice. Almost any of the things that I teach, whether it's remote viewing, lucid dreaming, out-of-body exploration, deep meditation, it's all the same. It's the ideas behind it are simple to learn. But it's the practice and the spiritual, psychic, and emotional muscles and mental muscles that are necessary to carry you forward. All the knowledge that you learn applied, because that's always what it's about. It's knowledge applied. So it's practice, and that's that ritual side of it. So I would say to everybody, whatever you're drawn to, just get ultra clear about it. What's the purpose? And then get into the ritual side of it. And the ritual side of it is the practice. But it's going to take developing those mental, emotional, spiritual, psychic muscles that will, just like it being in the physical gym, 1 rep, 2 rep, 3 reps, it builds the strength to where you have the attitudinal muscles, the tension, that you need to have applied to the stuff, the motivation. It will all come through baby steps. But practice small amounts and then bigger and bigger and bigger, and then it'll just carry you forward. But if somebody wants to relearn one of these practices we've been talking about, I actually have on Sunday coming up a free remote viewing webinar that they can access online at myspiritualunderground.com site. So, that's available if people really want to jump into that as a modality.
And is there you mentioned you do 2 to 3 hours. Is there a minimum that you recommend? Like, you're kind of like, look, if you're going to take this seriously and really make some advancements, you're going to need 30 minutes a day? Or
people I've heard this bandied around a lot in sort of personal development circles. People say that, to master something, you have to throw about 10,000 hours towards it. Now, I would say that's a half truth. That's not the whole story. Because if you're mediocre at something, or if you've been shown mediocre sort of technique, and you only practice in a mediocre way, after 10,000 hours, you're probably going to still be mediocre.
Yeah.
So it's applying yourself in a top-down way to where you learn the initial techniques, and then you're willing to always, every day, practice, to another level. Because like a dancer who's getting a feedback loop by standing in front of a mirror, they can see their dance moves. They can see what they need to improve on. Or better still, having a very expert coach who can look through their eyes to see, the areas where you need to improve. We all need feedback loops. So it's a matter of, like I said, getting clear with what you want to explore, why do you want to explore it, doing the ritual, and then having feedback loops. And being willing to have that top-down learning practice where every day you're going to say to yourself, I don't want to just get to a level to where I can coast and be good at this. I want to get to a level to where I can be world-class at this. I want to get to a level where this can become a profession, to where I can switch from where I'm at now to where I really want to be. If you want to get to that level, you have to always, every day, tweak something about your practice. Every day, take it to yet another level.
Awesome. So Todd, what is next for you? What is next for from Pandora Spa, and where do you see this space headed in the next few years?
For Pandora Spa, we're starting to broadcast, sort of on a regular basis now, because we've only got one location, which is in London, and that's the first spa. The intent is to have mind spas all over the world, in a lot of the major cities and some big towns. So that will come, and that will develop over the course of years. But right now, we're going to start broadcasting more and more messages to people through webinars, so we can start connecting with people more through tools that they have access to already. So we're kind of on the basis of this philosophy, which is, sort of love beyond self. So whatever we learn ourselves and apply ourselves and get great results from in our everyday lives, we want to be able to share with other people so they can do the same.
Awesome. And where can people find out more, Todd? Feel free just to take, I know obviously you've got the course on 22nd and 23rd of April on astral traveling, because I myself will be there. Cannot freaking wait. What else have you got going on? Where can people find out more? How can they get in touch with you? If they want to do a session on the Pandora Star as well, guys, definitely recommend it. How can people get in touch, and what's the quickest and easiest way?
Probably the quickest and easiest way would be on Facebook, if they have a Facebook account. So that would be Todd.Acamesis. If you go to spiritualunderground.com, this is where we're going to be broadcasting, doing a lot of live sort of feed, live streaming stuff from the spa, beaming around the world, different events like the free webinar on remote viewing coming up on Sunday. And if you're based in London, I have a meetup group in London, which is meetup.com/spiritualunderground. And yeah, those are probably the best ways. And if they want to learn more about the light, then that's pandorastar.co.uk. Or if they want to learn more about the spa, then it's pandoraspa.com.
Awesome. And just to leave people with some juice and a bit of a tease, Todd, if people listen now and they're like, okay, they're in, which I've seen a lot of my followers on Facebook have said they are, and they want to check out your stuff, go to your meetup, head down to Pandora Spa. If they were to practice 2 or 3 techniques between now and then that would equip them to do lucid dreaming, to do astral body traveling, what would be some of the things you might advise them to do to get them ready?
Well, I would say, I would say one of the first things is keeping a journal, an everyday journal, because this helps us understand who we are more and more. It helps us understand the places where we're wounded, because we're writing about our personal experiences and we start seeing patterns. And those patterns, are basically, if they're patterns we don't want in our lives, but they keep repeating themselves, then it's areas where we're wounded that we haven't, used enough self-love to really heal through taking the action side of this. Because it's one thing to sit down in meditation, like the Ho'oponopono, a practice of that caliber, which is all about reconciliation and forgiveness. Forgiveness work is a powerful thing, but being able to actually take it to the point of making amends as well, there's so many powerful practices that we can be employing on a regular basis. So I would say keeping a journal, an everyday journal, and that includes for nighttime stuff as well. So when you go to bed at night, make sure that journal is lying on the floor next to the bed or on a nightstand with plenty of pens. And every time you wake up in the night, if you remember something, just write it down straight away. Get in the habit of writing it down, because what you're doing is, you're saying to your subconscious, bare minimum, let's just call it the subconscious. You could call it higher self or whatever.
Yeah.
But you're saying to that part of you, you're saying, I pay attention. Okay? So you're literally creating these new neural pathways of paying attention and logging stuff, recording stuff. And therefore, that part of you now sees that you're starting to show up in an area of your life where you've never shown up before. You're literally starting to change the program. If this really is a virtual reality, if this really is like a simulation, this, and if you're unsure if you're simulated, this is a great way to sort of, be quirky, be different, so the programmer doesn't terminate your program. It's just sort of a light way of looking at it. But this is just, the way I view reality is the more that I start to show up, the more, I start to realize is available to me. Gratitude is a big part of it. So keeping a journal every single day, whether it's, your real life experiences during waking hours or your nighttime experiences, keep a journal. You'll start seeing patterns, whether good patterns or patterns that you want to let go of. To let them go, you have to realize you have to take absolute responsibility for every thought, every feeling, and every behavior surrounding that pattern. That doesn't mean, getting stuck around 94% healed. It means 100% responsibility for your experiences of life. That's what changes these patterns. That's what, does the healing work. So keeping a journal, and I would say also doing, on a daily basis, gratitude work as well. Getting to the point where gratitude becomes your sort of go-to feeling on a regular basis.
Awesome. Todd, that was freaking awesome. It's got to be said. Everyone listening, I'm sure you agree. Be sure to go and check out Todd. Honestly, check out the stuff he's done. One of my main things this year, I wanted to make sure everyone I have on this podcast, they're legit. Everything they do and everything they say, they're doing it behind the scenes. And Todd, if any of you have met him, you'll have experienced that he is that guy who goes in depth. He only expresses the stuff he's actually experienced himself. Just go and check out his stuff. Go down to Pandora Spa, check out the Pandora Star, get onto his meetups, and just be open to your mind being expanded, and just know that Todd is coming. He's not coming with some piecemeal stuff that he's got from somewhere else. It's stuff that he's experienced, and he will always be honest with you and just corral you and guide you as much as you can. Todd, thank you so much for your time.
Duke, thank you.
And I look forward to seeing you in April.
Same here.
Awesome.
And thank you very much for having me on the podcast. I'm really grateful.
And for the rest of you who are listening in, be sure to head on over to iTunes, leave us a review, let us know what you got out of this episode. I'm sure a lot, and just let other people what was going on and what you learned. And of course, if you're not in Man Club, head on over to manclub.co, join our Facebook group, Man Club, and I look forward to seeing you guys on the next episode.